today we're going to talk about something a little different. I normally focus on handheld consoles, but I recently had a comment asking for something a bit different, so today we're going to talk about my favorite PS5 games. Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope you're having a good day. Now, even though the console's been out for 3 years already, it doesn't really feel like there are that many PS5 games out. But when I was trying to make this list, I looked back, I didn't realize just how many games I'd actually bought for the PS5 so far. I also wanted to do something a little bit different at the end of this video, so I'm also going to talk about the top PS5 games I'm looking forward to. So stick around to the end if you want to see what those are. Just a quick warning, there'll probably be some spoilers for all the games that I talk about. And we're going to start with the first game I ever played on PS5 when I first got mine, and that is Spider-Man Miles Morales. So I'm a big Marvel fan, I have been all my life. I used to get some of the comics, I enjoyed all the old games. Spider-Man on the PS2 was one of the games that my brother and I played all the time. So obviously I enjoyed Spider-Man on the PS4 as well. The refresh, the modern design, it was really, really good. And when I got my PS5, I was quite lucky. I managed to get it pretty early on, and I got it with Spider-Man Miles Morales. It is quite a short game. A lot of people have described it as basically DLC for Spider-Man PS4, and I can kind of understand where they're coming from, but it was different enough that I still enjoyed it quite a lot. Miles' powers were really cool. I really liked seeing New York at Christmas. I really liked that setting. And the game was short, but it was fun to replay more than once. Now, I don't normally replay games, but because this was my only PS5 game, after I finished it, I did go straight back into the New Game Plus. And because of that, Miles Morales is my only platinum trophy that I have on PlayStation. I never had a PS3, so my PlayStation account started with PS4, but still, throughout PS4, I didn't get a single platinum trophy. Miles Morales is my only one, and it was my first ever PS5 game as well, so it felt very fitting. I'm probably going to say this about every game on this list because really it's true these days. With PS5 graphics, the game looks incredible. New York looks incredible. The lighting is really good. There is ray tracing in the game, and I tend to be somebody who prefers to have a higher frame rate to say 4K resolution. I think in this case Miles Morales had a performance ray tracing mode. That's probably the one that I went for. But it looks really good, and I think all the PS5 games on this list do look really good. I'm not always a fan of collecting things in games, I think I've said that before, but in the case of Spider-Man Miles Morales, there weren't too many awful ones to collect. You just had to do a few of each thing, and then when you did, you were often rewarded in a way that I quite enjoyed. So for example, you do all the training missions, and you're rewarded with a cool boss fight where you sort of fight this simulated vulture that Spider-Man, Peter Parker, has set up for you. And that was really fun, I really liked that. It felt like a good reward for collecting things, whereas normally I feel like there's no incentive to collect things in games. They want you to do it to extend the time, but it's not always worth it for you. In this case, I think it was, and that just added to my enjoyment. A great game, and I got the edition that came with the remaster of Spider-Man, and I'll probably go back to that at some point as well. Yeah, my first game on PS5, one of my favorite games, and we'll go on to the second game on this list now, which is God of War Ragnarok. 2018's God of War on the PS4 was my very first God of War game. Like I said, I didn't have a PS3, so I didn't play any of the other ones before that, and boy, was it an incredible way to be introduced to the series. It very quickly became one of my favorite games of all time. It's still one of my favorite games of all time. And so God of War Ragnarok had a lot to live up to, but I really think that it did live up to that. The gameplay of fighting as Kratos feels just as good in this game, maybe even better. They've added a few more features in there. There's a new weapon, you still get to switch between your Leviathan axe and your Chaos blades, but they also included being able to fight as Atreus in this game, which was a nice surprise, and it's pretty fun even if I didn't really feel like it was fleshed out as well as Kratos's. There's no weapon change, you don't really get to do anything like that, so it felt more like a side mode, I suppose, rather than an actual fully fleshed out second character. But it was still fun. The story in 2018's God of War was one of my favourite stories in any game ever, and the story in God of War Ragnarok was also just as good. It really was sort of this epic, grand story on proportions that you don't really get in a lot of games. Same was true with the other God of War as well, this one even more so. It took some twists and turns that I didn't expect. There were some real emotional moments for me. And the finale of that game, when you're assaulting Asgard, it just felt so cool. You just feel like an amazing warrior sort of leading this charge, and it was a great moment. I was genuinely sad at the end of the game when Atreus sort of decided to go his own way for a while. Over the two games, you really sort of feel like you get to know both of the characters, and Atreus went from being this annoying kid in God of War 2018 to sort of becoming a character you can kind of rely on. You know, he makes some mistakes still, sure, but is much less annoying in this game, I thought, and better fleshed out, I think, as a character. And yeah, so I was sad to see him go his own way. I don't know what they're going to do for future games, but I do sort of hope to have the duo, but father and son, back together again for anything that happens going forward. Now, the developers said there were only going to be 2 God of War games that are set in Norse mythology, so we're kind of finished now with this setting for God of War. I'm really excited to see what they're going to do next. I don't know if they're going to move on to another pantheon, another set of gods, or how they're going to tackle that. I'm really excited to see though, and I'm really into the series now. I would like to go back and play some of the older God of War games, but I do sort of struggle sometimes to get into old games that I don't have nostalgia for. Sometimes they feel a bit clunky, and if I don't have that nostalgia bringing me in, then sometimes I do bounce off them very quickly. God of War Ragnarok though, amazing game, and the second game on this list. For the next game, we're going from a series that I didn't play any of the old games to a series where I have played quite a lot of the old games, and this one is Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart. So, like I said, I played quite a few of these older games. I think I played a lot of them on PS2. I can't really remember exactly which ones I played. I have a memory in my head of playing as Ratchet as part of Team Darkstar. I looked it up and apparently it's from Ratchet Deadlock or Ratchet Gladiator, depending on which region you're in. And apparently it's the last one on PS2, so that's probably why I remember that one the most. But I think we played a couple, my brother and I did play the PS4 Ratchet and Clank, and so I was very excited to get Rift Apart. This game is so much fun, and it's fun in a different way to Spider-Man and God of War. It's more like silly fun, like you have a laugh playing the game, you have such a great time. There's never really a dull moment. There's always some kind of funny thing going on or exciting thing going on. It really is really just a fun game. In the same sense that like Mario is fun, you're always doing something entertaining. That's how I feel about Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart as well. You're always doing something entertaining, either makes you laugh or is really interesting. And I'm going to bring up the graphics of the game again. They really are incredible in this game. A lot of people throw out the phrase that it's like you're playing a Disney movie, and they say that for a reason. It really does look incredible. You can basically see the individual hairs on Ratchet in cutscenes. It's just amazing. And this is a game that's just at the start of its life as well, and we always seem to get better looking games towards the end of a console's life. So how incredible will that be if there's another Ratchet and Clank game towards the end of the PS5's life? How amazing would that look? I mentioned that the game was funny, and there are a lot of jokes, and they don't take themselves too seriously, but at the same time there are some sort of tender moments between characters. There's backstory that sort of makes you feel for some of the characters. There are serious moments. It's not all jokes to the point where you feel like nothing's worth doing. And I like the villain in the game, although he is sort of typical over-the-top villain. His motivations are just he wants to rule the world because... But he is enjoyable. I don't always these days need every villain to have a sympathetic backstory where I can understand why they did what they did. Sometimes it's fun just to have a bad guy who does bad things because he is bad. And that's what you get in this game. There's a really good variety of guns, like there always is in a Ratchet & Clank game, but there's some really good ones in this game. And the way you switch between worlds going through the rifts, that also feels really fun, and they say that can only really be done with the power of the PS5. Whether that's true or not, I don't know, because it's about to come out on PC at this point, but it was really fun, and you do go through there really quickly. And speaking of the PS5 features, I really liked the use of the DualSense in this game. Not all of the PS5 games that I'm talking about on this list use the DualSense too much, but there was quite a lot of features used in Rift Apart, and I really like that. I think it adds something to the game. I kind of miss when I play other games and they don't have any of the DualSense features, the little sounds, the adaptive triggers, the way the vibrations are more cleverly able to be manipulated. It just adds another layer to the game, especially when it's done right, and I really like that about the PS5 in general, and I really like that in this game. Game number 4 now is Ghosts of Tsushima, and what an incredible game that has been created by Sucker Punch Productions. So I don't know if this is cheating really, because this technically came out on the PS4, but I didn't really play it on the PS4. I played the PS5 upgrade, so yeah, I experienced it on the PS5 with all the PS5 features. So really it's sort of one of my favorite PS5 games, and that's why it's on the list. This is an open world game, but it's an open world game done so well. It doesn't feel like there's any filler side quests, go here, fetch this. All of the side quests have story to them, and the side quests that you do for sort of like your main companions, they're basically campaigns in their own right. There's usually 9 story missions for each one. They take you all the way across the map. They're very deep in story, and they're just really good. And like I said, they're basically campaigns in their own right, and I think that just goes to show how much effort was put into this game. And this game is absolutely beautiful. The colors, the flowers, even just looking sometimes over the fields and watching the long grasses sort of move in the breeze, that's incredible. And speaking of the breeze, using the wind to direct you to your next objective, means that you're not constantly looking at a minimap, or you're not constantly going in and out of a full screen map. You're locked in the game. It's less jarring to keep finding out where you have to go. Maybe I've just not found one, but I can't believe that no other developer has made a game which has a similar mechanic in there now. The only two really that I've seen similar to that are Fable 2 way back in the day with sort of the golden glitter trail that you would follow, and now Ghost of Tsushima where you follow the wind. You know, all the other games still have mini-maps or compass markers at least, where you just make sure you're lined up to the compass marker. These are much better ways, I think, and more games need to do stuff like that. The combat is very fluid as well. They've created a very good combat system, I think, switching between stances to counter different enemy types. There's bow combat, there's horse combat, there's a whole stealth mechanic to the game where you have lots of different ways to kill people in stealth. You know, you've got smoke bombs, you've got all sorts of distractions. Basically, however you want to fight your enemies, you probably can do, and it works just fine. And it has an amazing story as well. I talked a little bit ago about it, and I talked about the intro to the game where you're sort of riding along the beach. That's incredible. But the game has so many other moments like that, some really awesome moments, some really emotional moments for me as well, especially one halfway through the game that really caught me off guard, and I wasn't expecting it at all. And then finally, I didn't play it too much, but they added a multiplayer mode later. Really, I just think this game was a labor of love, and it worked out really well for them. And I'm really excited to see what this developer does for their next game. I don't know if they're going to do a sequel straight away or if they're going to go on to something else, but I'm excited to see what they do next. Okay, so the last game on the list is the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection. So funnily enough, I have played all the Uncharted games late and on the wrong generation of console. I played the first trilogy on the PS4, the remastered trilogy on the PS4, and then I played 4 and 5 on the Legacy of Thieves collection on the PS5. So again, I know it came out on the PS4 originally, but I played the PS5 version, so that's why it's on this list. Now, there aren't too many series that I can think of that have had 5 games and I've played and completed every single one of the games in this series, but the Uncharted games are just great adventures, really. 1 to 3 were really good. I really enjoyed everything in those, and then 4 and 5 really have just followed the same trend. They're just great games to play. Sony games over the last few years, I think, have become more cinematic almost. They have these really great set-piece action segments. So the boss fights in God of War spring to mind, especially at the start of God of War 2018, where you're doing that boss fight with the stranger. That's very cinematic. And then an example in Uncharted is the car chase through Madagascar. That's the sort of the one everybody knows, where you're driving on the Jeep and you're swinging across bridges, jumping across cars, things like that. Uncharted is full of moments like these, but that's the one everybody knows, and for good reason, because it's really incredible to play. Uncharted 4 also looks incredible. I think it did on PS4 as well, but it really is one of the best looking games I've ever seen. I still can't believe how good it looks. I even went back and looked at some of the PS4 footage, and that looks amazing as well. It looks better than some PS5 games. They did an amazing job on the graphics with this game, I think. And Uncharted 4 was a really nice way to finish off Nate's story, although I was sad to see him go. And I played Uncharted The Lost Legacy as well. I didn't enjoy that quite as much, but there were some really great moments in that as well, although I really did miss playing as Nate from, you know, Uncharted 1 to 4. I completely understand why he wasn't in there, because, you know, he's gotten out of the game, but I still missed him. You know, he was one of the big pulls of playing the game. His sarcasm and his character, really, I enjoyed that a lot. I don't know if they'll make another Uncharted game and if he'll come back or not, but a really good character, I think. So those were my top 5 PS5 games, but the video is not over, because like I promised, I also want to very quickly talk about my 5 upcoming games that I'm most excited about. The first one probably won't be a surprise, considering Miles Morales was on my list of favorite games. It's Spider-Man 2. Look guys, I just want more Spider-Man. I want a fully fledged PS5 Spider-Man game. We just had a gameplay trailer recently. I think it looks really cool. I'm so excited to see the Venom suit, the black suit. Peter Parker looks like he's really struggling with that. He seems angry. I'm just very excited to play that game. I think it's going to be really good. Apparently it's even bigger than the previous games as well, which I'm normally not so excited about. Usually I think, oh, well, that's going to be a lot of filler. But in this case, I don't think that's going to be the case. Like I said, I trust Insomniac now, so I'm really looking forward to that game. Next is Dragon's Dogma 2. Now, I really like RPGs and fantasy RPGs in particular, and I tried to play Dragon's Dogma 1, but by the time I got around to playing it, it sort of has felt a bit too clunky. I know it's sort of designed that way, but it's a bit complicated, and I don't want to spend a very long time working out what I have to do. I can do that. Sometimes I'm okay with that, but not always. And so I'm hoping Dragon's Dogma 2 will be a bit more streamlined. And I want to check it out because the first game was supposed to be this amazing open world. You could go anywhere, do anything, lots of cool ways to fight monsters, lots of lore to dig into, magic, that kind of thing, a big end game as well. So I'm hoping that Dragon's Dogma 2 will be more of that, but just a little bit easier for me to get into, and that's why it's on this list. Warhammer 40,000 Space Marine 2, I was actually really surprised to hear that this game was going to come out because the first one was such a long time ago. I liked the first one a lot. I've liked Warhammer basically forever. I've not always really been into it. I didn't have anybody to play with, but I have recently started to collect some again. And so I'm really looking forward to Space Marine 2. I think the power of next generation consoles is going to be amazing with Tyranids. If they get so many on screen at once, I think it's going to feel amazing. You know, like you really are facing against this horde of aliens coming at you. That's going to be really cool. Really looking forward to trying that one out. Number 4 is Phantom Blade Zero, and I'm mostly excited about this one for the combat. Ghost of Tsushima had really cool samurai combat. Phantom Blade Zero also has samurai combat, but it seems like it's going in a different direction. It looks less about, you know, anticipating your enemy and more about these sort of flashy, cool combos. You seem to be able to dash around all over the place. Lots and lots of sword meets sword. We don't know too much about this one, but yeah, just based on that combat alone, I'm really interested to find out more, and I would like to have a go. And the last game on this list, the ones I'm looking forward to the most, I'm kind of cheating. There's 2 games on the top spot, but the reason why is because they're from the same series, and so I didn't want to separate them out. I didn't think that was fair. It's Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and Final Fantasy 16. Look guys, Final Fantasy has sort of been my thing ever since they went into less turn-based combat and more into sort of action combat. When Final Fantasy 15 came out, I took the day off and I basically played all day. That game's got one of my favorite boss fights ever in Leviathan. When Final Fantasy VII Remake came out, again I took the day off. I basically played that all weekend. I went through the whole game in a long weekend. One of my favorite games. It was a bit drawn out, but still one of my favorite games I played in a long time. I never played the original Final Fantasy VII. I got into it with Crisis Core. So seeing Sephiroth purely as a bad guy, you know, after having played Crisis Core on the PSP and then going through that journey of him becoming a bad guy, now in 7 Remake, he is a proper bad guy, and that was really cool to see. He's really scary. And so obviously I'm looking forward to the continuation of that story. And then Final Fantasy 16 is my most anticipated game of this year. Guys, I really like Tears of the Kingdom, but I'm so excited for Final Fantasy 16. It just looks like the most epic game that they're gonna make. The proportions of everything look incredible. The world, the story, the icon fights, you know, it seems like you turn into an icon. That looks incredible. The graphics look amazing. The combat is supposed to be a bit more DMC-like, which I don't really know how to feel about that. I'm not always into, like, you know, flashy combos and getting your ranking up, but I don't think that's in there. I think it's supposed to be more like fluid RPG combat, which I will be very into if they pull it off right. I'm really looking forward to that game. That is definitely my most anticipated PS5 game of this year. And of all the ones I can think of really that have been announced to come out, that is the one I'm looking forward to the most. Okay guys, there we go. Those are my favorite PS5 games and the PS5 games that I'm most looking forward to coming out soon. I really hope you like this video. Like I said, it's something a bit different. I normally talk about handheld stuff, but really I'm just quite happy to talk about any aspect of gaming. So if you have any requests, feel free to pop them in the comments. And thank you so much to EJP for suggesting this, because it's been really fun to think about and talk about. Do you have a PS5? And if so, what are your favorite games, or what games are you looking forward to coming out soon? Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.